Do you struggle with navigating the transitional time of ending of relationships, coming back home to yourself? Maybe this is something you're experiencing now, or maybe it's a pattern that you've witnessed in yourself that you maybe want a little perspective around. And today I really want to talk about this concept that I've noticed in my own life that I like to call rupture to restructure. And hoping that this will give some insight, some perspectives, and just touch on some important points to keep in mind when you are moving from the transition of ending a relationship into maybe cultivating a friendship or just moving on with your life. My name is Natalie with the Wild Nature channel, and my channel is all about providing empowering tools, concepts, reframes, and perspectives to really support you in peeling back the layers of untruths, of stories, of conditioning, of programming or patterning that you have in your life, so that you can slowly come back to the wholeness of who you are at your core and find the wild nature that you are meant to bring out into the world. And so today I want to talk about this rupture to restructure. So Natalie, what does that mean? Rupture to restructure. So there's a pattern in my life that I've noticed, and after having some conversations with other dear friends and women in my life, it's not an isolated incident where there's this period of needing separation. This period of maybe needing some hard truths to be really illuminated, to bring in these deeper, more catalyzing emotions. Maybe that's resentment, maybe that's rage, maybe that's deep grief, and whatever it may be. This is a really beautiful time frame in where we can be able to restructure both our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to other. And I want to bring up this concept that came from my understanding of sound and sound healing and frequency. And this was something I received from a teacher, Dr. John Beaulieu, who I had the pleasure of learning from. Something that he shared during the class that I took from him was chaos is necessary in order to change frequency. And I'll break that down a little bit for you. So everything is frequency. Everything that we touch, see, sense, feel, and even the things that we can't see, touch, sense, and feel, it's all frequency. There's a resonant vibration of the atoms and the way that they move in the world. And in order to change from one frequency to another, and in this instance, to change from one state of being in relationship, into another, our sovereignty, or into friendship, it's actually necessary for that chaos or rupture to take place. And the reason being is when you are holding this coherent frequency, you can't just jump into the next frequency. You have to change shape. And so this rupture to restructure or chaos to enter into new frequency is this dissolution of the foundation of that frequency, the structure of that frequency. Because in order to take a new shape, you have to break apart the foundations of what you have cultivated in order for things to come back into a coherent new frequency. So that can't take place if you're still holding on to the structure that once was. And so how does this apply to relationships? My own personal story is I've had a tendency that at the end of relationships, I feel resentment, I feel anger, I feel betrayal, whatever it may be. And some of these are stories that I've worked through. But there's a catalyzing moment that really forces separation in those relationships. And it's a really painful but yet beautiful time frame, because what it does is it breaks away the tight grip that you had on that frequency, that relationship, that state of being. And it's coming from a deeper soul-led place. Your soul knows maybe something isn't in alignment, and the universe conspires to support you to come back into alignment if you're in misalignment. It'll maybe start by subtle things that you noticed in the beginning of in the relationship that didn't feel resonant, and maybe you had an intuition around. And then throughout, there's this building of momentum of those different elements. And when it gets to a certain point and you're no longer listening to those signs, there's something that has to take place to really just break things away, really send you maybe a little over your edge. so that there's a new movement that has to take place, forcing you in a new direction. And this is what that rupture period is. It's this breaking away of something that you were holding on to, this breaking away of a structure, a symbol, a foundation in your life that no longer resonates with the frequency of where your soul is heading. And I think it's really important to allow this process to take place. The more we try to resist it, the more we try to overcome it, or maybe push it aside or mask and be like, oh, it's all good, we can just transition into friends right away, the more those frictions will continue to build. And so the earlier you can really take that space apart, really allow for some breathing room, begin to separate from the foundations that had been there, the more easily you'll be able to, first of all, pull your power back to you. When we're in these deep relationships, whether it's romantic or maybe it's a really deep friendship, or it could even be familial, when we're in these really deep relationships, there's a foundation that's taken place, and we step ourselves into these certain roles, and we may not even realize it. And part of it is coming from our truth, and part of it may be coming from suppressing the truth of who we are. And so when we reach this rupturing point, it initiates this deeper questioning. First may come the blame, the resentment, the grief, the whatever it needs to take place. First, those things may come into play. And during this time frame, it's really, really important to not push away the resentment, to not push away the things. Allow them to be there and to be felt. Because there's something that needs to be healed in order for you to move on. So if you try to just overcome and like, oh, but I want to be all love and light and whatever, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because there's a certain emotion or frequency that needs to be released from the body first in order for you to shift into a new frequency, a new way of being, or a new path. This happens both internally as well as in the relationship itself. Internally, when we allow for these feelings to be felt, to allow ourselves to hold whatever is arising, coming back to somatic tools like breath, touch, sound, and movement, self-holding, taking time for self-care during these time frames, and allowing yourself to feel it with balance, not spiraling deeper into the stories, but allowing what needs to emerge, allowing what needs to be felt to be there without judgment, without condemnation, but with compassion and understanding. And maybe with curiosity as well, seeking to understand, like, what is the root of this resentment? What is the root of this grief? What is the root of this deep sadness, or a feeling of betrayal, or a feeling of abandonment, or whatever it might be? And it's a really beautiful time to begin that questioning that we can't come to unless we allow ourselves to feel it. And this is where the pulling your power back comes into play. When we allow ourselves to feel all of what needs to emerge within us in order for that new frequency to take shape, it allows us to see the ways in which maybe we are self-betraying, maybe we are self-abandoning, maybe there's self-resentment, because of ways that we weren't showing up for ourselves in that relationship, that maybe we expected someone else to show up for us in those ways. And so holding ourselves through that process, and then beginning that kind of introspective, reflective time frame, which is really necessary to have that space in order to do so. And it can be hard when relationships end, whether it's romantic or best friend or family, when they start to change shape. There's this gripping that wants to occur, like, oh, but I don't want to lose my best friend. They've been my best friend, especially in romantic relationships. I'm not only losing my partner, I'm losing my best friend. And when we grip onto any element of that relationship to try to hold on to it, then we are still fueling and funneling our power into that situation, rather than beginning to bring the energy and focus back to ourselves so that we can grow and learn from the experience, so that we can receive the lessons, and so we can start to see where we have unknowingly been giving our power to others to receive love, to receive validation, so that we can start to funnel all of that back within. And I find this spaciousness, this period in between one foundation taking place and a new foundation emerging, is a really beautiful time frame to start to cultivate a deeper questioning of, what is it that I really want? Who is it that I really am deep down inside? What is it that I really want to express? And you can begin to come home to those elements. And this can't happen without that spaciousness. This can't happen without feeling the feelings that need to be felt when the rupture takes place, when the chaos ensues. Coming back home to self to begin to click, 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 all those pieces that have been out of resonance. All those pieces that have been out of harmony, begin to slowly bring those back into alignment so that we can move forward into whatever new relationships or whatever new forms of old relationships want to take place. And the other beauty of this spaciousness, when you really allow the time and the slowness to expand, to come home to self, to pull your power back, to begin that inner reflection and stop abandoning self, stop neglecting self, stop betraying self, then you enter back in out of this portal, this chaos that has taken place after the rupture, where everything feels a little disoriented and out of place. And then you're slowly able to see, oh, this is the new form that I want to take in my relationships. These are the new values, the new non-negotiables, the new boundaries that I need to set for my self-care and my path and my devotion to self. And the beautiful part about that spaciousness is when you really take the time and you really do start to bring in all these questions and new awarenesses, is that when you emerge from this into that restructure period, you're emerging from a deeper sense of wholeness. And so there's less of this gripping and needing things to maybe be the way that they once were. Have the best friend in the exact way that it once was, because there may be elements of that take place in the restructuring, or there may not be. And the important aspect is really being able to hold yourself through whatever emerges, whatever new shape takes place, both within yourself and within the relationships in your life. And when you do this, there's this more organic flow that takes place. You know, the relationships that once were, when you allow yourself to fully release them after feeling the emotions, after coming back home to self, after taking this deep inner reflective period and reorienting yourself to the direction of your soul, there's a more organic and even unconditional element of the love that begins to unfold in the new structure. Because the things that maybe once bothered you, that built up this resentment, this feeling of abandonment, this feeling of betrayal, this deep feeling of loss or grief or whatever it was, they are the catalysts for coming back in and seeing this person from a space of, I can take care of myself and I don't need you to show up in a certain way for me to love you. And vice versa. I don't need to show up in a certain way in order to try and receive love from other person. And there's a deep, deep empowering element in this. When you take the time to pause in between relationships, to not dive into distraction or a new relationship or infatuation or whatever it may be, like, I really encourage you to take the time. Of course, lean on your support system that you have. I'm not saying go in a hole and do this on your own, because sometimes that can bring us out of capacity and it can spiral us down. So knowing your support systems of being able to navigate, whether there's certain friends you can talk to or a therapist that you can go to really be able to go in and ask those deeper inner questions without it spinning you out of your capacity. And then when you emerge back into this truer version of who you actually are and what you actually want, then the things that that person does or who that person is and the way they operate in life won't have the same impact on you, because you've come deeper home to yourself and you've been able to hold yourself, and you get this sense of empowerment of like, I'm good with or without you. I've got me. I am my own greatest pillar. I am my own greatest lover. I am my own greatest best friend. Because I'm done with the abandonment of self. I'm done with neglecting my needs. And I'm going to show up for me, and I expect you to do the same for you. And it builds this deep element of self-trust. And when you have and cultivate this element of self-trust and self-holding and showing up for self, then you don't reach and grab so much for the relationships around you to fill that need. You can still lean on people, but it's not a necessity for you to feel whole, for you to feel worthy. And in doing that, the relationships, if they do take a new form. So we've had a few relationships, romantic partners that have had these big ruptures, and then we've come back together, and the expectations that I realized I had of other dissipated. And it allowed me to really just appreciate those people for who they are. And it also allowed me to speak up more about like, hey, that actually doesn't feel good. Hey, this doesn't resonate with me. And be that kind of accountability for having other people show up in their highest as well. And being able to ask deeper questions to that person without it coming from a space of judgment and you need to change, but like, hey, I noticed this thing and I love you. And I want to call attention to it. And so there's this really beautiful restructuring that can take place that comes from a deeper soul level, that comes from a deeper space of unconditional love, because you no longer expect that person to be a specific way or show up as a specific form for you to feel whole, for you to feel worthy, for you to feel loved. And so you're freed from that. And there's a deep heart opening that takes place to the people in your life. And then on the flip side, after this restructure, this rupture and restructure, maybe you're restructuring, you actually come to the realization that your life is better off without that person, situation. And I've had this take place as well. After the rose-colored glasses are ripped off and all of these truths begin to emerge, and you see this person's values and morals and the way that they live their life and the actions that they take really just don't feel good and don't feel in alignment with your soul truth. It's not to say that that person is wrong or bad or whatever it may be, but the frequencies just don't match anymore. You've come into this new frequency. Your soul is now emerging into the truth of how it wants to walk in the world and what works and what doesn't. And so then you're able to say, hey, this doesn't feel good for me anymore. And that's okay too. The restructure can be a restructuring of knowing your worth, knowing the love that you deserve, and knowing that your values are important to you. And if someone else's don't align with yours in a way that doesn't feel conducive for your growth, then you can choose from this new space of empowerment to walk away. And you've already felt the feelings of grief. You've felt the feelings of resentment. You've felt all of these feelings. You've taken the spaciousness. So this walking away comes from this like, yeah, this is my path. This is my decision. And that's okay. There can still be love there, and you can choose not to have people in your life if their patterns, their values, the way that they walk in this world just doesn't resonate with the frequency that you're holding. And there's not a space of judgment from this. It's not saying like, well, I've elevated to this new frequency and you're down here, so bye. But more just thinking about a lateral move. Think about radio waves instead of up, down. Think about radio frequencies. Maybe you just shifted to a different number on the radio dial and this person's still in the same frequency that they were before. Or maybe you shifted this way on the radio dial. There's no one right or wrong way. And it allows you to make that decision and come home to yourself, and really gives you the agency in your life to choose what kind of relationships do you want from here on out. What are the signs and symbols and situations that you will be able to recognize more easily as you are maybe being introduced to new people? new potential partners, relationships, business relations, whatever it may be. And so this rupture to restructure period is so important. And I invite you to really take your time to feel what needs to be felt, to be with the emotions, the sensations in the body, the hurt, to hold yourself through all of it, to take that spaciousness apart, because we really can't shift frequencies if we're constantly being met with the thing that reminds us of the stories that we were playing in our head. We can, it's just a lot harder. So when we're able to take that distance and we're not constantly being reinforced with these triggers and situations that bring us back into the feeling, back into the stories, when we take that time apart, we're able to really come home to who we are. And then we choose, how do we want to move forward? Who do we want to have in our life from here on out? And so I hope you found this video supportive. If you are moving through a time frame of rupture, I invite you to hold yourself, to really love yourself in the way that you deserve to be loved, to maybe witness the ways in which you haven't been showing up for yourself in that way, not to shame yourself, but just to start to reorient into this new direction, into this new frequency. And if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, hit that like button, comment with anything that resonated with you, or if there's any part about your story that you want to share with anyone who may be going through this experience at this time, or anyone you feel this would be supportive for. And as always, subscribe to this channel for more empowering content, perspectives, tools, resources to bring you back home to your wholeness. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.